You're listening to The Liz Harrison Show.
Now, as for bad people, there's been a recent dust-up on the conservative interwebs. People may or may not know Holly Fisher. She went to meteoric fame over some sexy photos that conservatives happen to like, I suppose. She had been a guest on at least one show here on Vigilant Liberty. And she ended up on War Radio and ended up leaving them. I'm not going to get into all of that. I'm also not going to get into all of the lurid details of why she has been getting a lot of unwanted attention lately. Because, I'm sorry, I'm not going to add to the fire. At least not against her. No, my venom is aimed at a reprehensible, disgusting piece of garbage that has the audacity to call himself a journalist. As an editor, I have been known to say to writers, just say no to certain websites. InfoWars tops the list. There are quite a few others. Obviously, the Daily Current, because, it's all lies. It's a screwed up version of The Onion. But otherwise, stay away from gotnews.com. This is not a real website. Or at least not in the sense that if you're looking for a reliable source, it is not one. Okay? And you know that you're really doing it wrong. I know. People are going to say, oh, it's the New York Times. No, you know you're doing it wrong, regardless of which side of the political spectrum you may reside. If the New York Times does a hit piece on your entire career, because, they're such a paragon of truth. If even they recognize that you are a reprehensible piece of garbage that needs to be off the web, then you need to be off the web, or you need to be ignored, or whatever. And I know, I am gathering fire. I did say, at Goldwater Gal, bring it. Bring it. I've had it. I'm done. I don't care anymore. The person who I'm referring to is ChuckCJohnson. He's 26 years old, a blogger in California. He does hit pieces on a regular basis. He runs fast and loose with the truth. He doesn't really give a damn if it is the truth. He's going to report it. Which is why I said he's a bad source. But otherwise, now we have reached the slimy tabloid level. Because when you reach the level where you are engaging in extortion to get stories, you're doing it wrong. And then you become somebody who people like me pay attention to. And I know that might not seem like a really big deal. I've been around this game way too long. Way too long. And arguably some would say that this cretin engages in the same job that I used to do. Yeah, Charles C. Johnson digs dirt. That's something that I used to do for various political campaigns over the years. That's why I don't have a resume in the political world. People who write yellow papers don't have resumes. We may later on admit to the fact that we've done it, especially after we've put several years between where we are now and what we were doing then. But that's pretty much all we'll say. It's a nasty job. There's money in it. But there are actually ethical ones out there. There are people who wouldn't turn in reports on people unless they were actually, I don't know, true. We didn't make it up as we went along. We didn't engage in extortion. We didn't lie to potential targets to get them to fess up to what we suspected in a public way, namely headlines. We didn't make it personal. And most importantly, we didn't turn the personal lives of people, whether or not they happen to be in the spotlight doesn't matter. We didn't turn the personal lives of people into fodder for the masses in the same way that the National Enquirer does. Because you see, there's a really good reason for digging dirt whenever it comes to potential candidates for office. If people are engaged in really horrible behavior in their personal lives and they are seeking to hide it from the public while they are running for office, that doesn't end well. Case in point, Bubba. In hindsight, I wonder how many Democrat handlers thought it really wasn't a good idea to put a man with a woman problem in the White House. And I'm talking if they're brutally honest with themselves. I'm not saying come out and do a tell-all. And I've got news for you. Somebody came damn close to doing that. One of their higher-ups did say it. Did tell him, if you don't stop, they were going to walk. They weren't going to support him. They weren't going to help to get him in office. Why? Because they knew it would be detrimental to the office, to him, to them, to reputations across the board. And look at how it turned out. It worked out so well. That's why the dirt matters when it comes to politicians. They are held to a higher standard than everyone else. And yes, I understand. Lurid details, horrible stories, they sell. But don't sit there and try to advertise yourself as a conservative. Don't try to advertise yourself as a real journalist. Don't try to say you are doing real news. I wouldn't give a good goddamn about the Charles C. Johnson if he engaged in some truth in advertising. Wouldn't care. And that's not even to say that there isn't a place for him. I mean, why not have a conservative National Enquirer? Take a chance on that, okay, Mr. Johnson? But stop trying to say that you're anything remotely close to a real journalist. You're not. You're slime. You're garbage. Your content is trash. My advice to anyone who's listening to this, you see anyone sitting there saying that they have gotten information from Got News and they are acting like it is a legitimate source. I mean, it's all well and good if they're sitting there ripping the hell out of it and saying that it sucks, that it's not truthful, that it is not worth considering as anywhere close to responsible. Fine, that's fine. If they're going to indict it and call it for what it is, go ahead, that's fine. But if they're going to say that it's a legitimate source, do yourself a favor. Stop reading them. Don't take them seriously anymore. I don't even know where to begin. I really don't. I mean, who knows? Maybe I will tick off somebody bad enough that he and his lovely little minions on the Twitter will try to go after me. Go ahead. I can still write. And I've got news for you. I have editors on sites that get a heck of a lot of views. And you know what? I think they're just about as tired of garbage like this being associated with them. Because, you know, Got News is sort of kind of considered a conservative news site. They don't want to be associated with you. They would be quite happy to have somebody sitting there saying, yet again, repeatedly, you're not news, you're trash. You're not a journalist. You're a tabloid assassin. You don't do news. You exist to make people miserable. If you can't get the story, you make it up as you go along. And if you think that you can go and push people's buttons, you engage in extortion to make them give you a story. Charming career. I think they had movies about that once. Wasn't there one? Oh yeah, LA Confidential. Danny DeVito played the person. I'll leave it at that. Because, you reap what you sow. Eventually somebody will tick off the wrong person. Anyway. Yeah, it's wonderful. Really is. Of course, I'm still wondering, he claims that it's a crowdsourced website. Crowdfunded. Wow. Oh, and it takes all the people like him, autistics, researchers, nerds, ex-law enforcement, whistleblowers. I don't know. My advice? Go to Got News, find out who all the names are. That's it. Any of those people come anywhere close to you or anyone you know, shut them down. Categorically, just go straight down the line on the social media, block them all. That sounds like a plan. And this is advice to listeners and to other people like myself. This is not to say that I'm not willing to go head-to-head with these idiots. This is to say that I don't want them digging in whatever I have to say out there and try to come up with ammunition. Because, you know what? Some people might bow to extortion. I prefer the nuclear option. I don't deal with ex-law enforcement. I deal with current law enforcement. I don't deal with disbarred lawyers. I deal with ones that are in firms that ended up placing multiple partners on the bench. Get the difference? Hope so. And that, by the way, is how the rest of you should deal with this sort of thing. Don't get scared. Don't get nervous. Pick up the phone. Dial the police. State that you have an individual threatening you. I know the police aren't really going to do anything until they're sure that you're going to have some sort of bodily harm. That's not the point. The point is to have something on file. You want it documented. And then go and pick up the phone and call an attorney. I really do have to ask certain individuals on the Twitter, if you're not willing to take the intellectual property and little lawsuits like this, or you're unable to in various states, you know what? We really do. The lawyers out there, the big heavy hitters, you know who you are on the Twitter. You need to get a list together. Who do we call in a given state for whatever problem? You gotta network, folks. We need a conservative media legal network. We really do. Because, if nothing else, maybe the little red-headed pain in the rear could be put out of commission very simply by burying him in paper of the legal kind. Hey, this is America. You could sue anyone. I know I'm really opposed as a general rule to frivolous lawsuits, but I don't consider this one. No, I consider it a public service. Bury the man in so much legal garbage that he just will never get himself back out. That's the perfect solution to idiots like Charles C. Johnson that David Carr over at the New York Times aptly compared with web-borne viruses and cybercrime. That about covers it. He is a virus. A blight on the web. Anyway. And I may or may not get annoyed enough later on today to just go forth and say more about this, writing somewhere